It is necessary to cultivate a mental state that favours the action of the layer of the mind that activates the internal effect. It is necessary to cultivate a mental state that favours the action of the layer of the mind that activates the internal effect. This is where you need to find the mind, lap nim, as Grandmaster Yip Man said to Chu Shong Tin on a number of occasions, where he said, you know, what's the secret? What's the secret? The old man said, lap nim. Lap nim. He said it 3 times, and then it was like, no, talk to the hand, don't ask me again, work it out. It means to find the nim mind, the nim dao, find that other mind. Exactly what Michel's saying here. You need to cultivate that state that activates the internal effect. G'day everybody, welcome to Wing Chun Mind Force. Today I'm talking about something I've really been looking forward to talking about, which is this wonderful book called The Portal of Wing Chun, The Little Idea by my friend Michel Boulet. Now, I'll be putting links to this where you can get it. I really advise you to go and get it. I think that if you're a keen Wing Chun person, you must have this in your library. Being a book lover, and I must admit a nerd, I'm a science fiction nerd, I'm into all sorts of stuff. I've collected some great books, but there's not that much about what I consider real Wing Chun out there. Video-wise, there's some great stuff. Anything by Nima King's unreal, Mark Spence, Dragon Dao in Sydney, anything where the elusive Mr. Tony Saylor appears is awesome. Beau Bazard, my old mate, has got a number of videos with awesome couple of days I spent with him here in my garage, going right through Silnim Dao in a really mind-opening way. And some of the guys in Hong Kong, Eddie Chan's amazing, his stuff's awesome. The few things we get from Master Peter Wong and from Sigung's son Horace, they're awesome. Mark Ho in Sheffield, I'd like to see him produce lots more videos. And his Sung Wing Chun, he was close to Sigung and he trained with him a lot. So there's some very, very profound information in the videos from Sung Wing Chun. That's S-U-N-G, like sung in English. I learned a lot about yi, what it is, what intention is. And so then, out of the blue, this gentleman, Michel Boulet, wrote to me, and everything he said was right on. I was like, he liked what I was doing. He complimented me and said, I love your take on it. I really totally agree with you. And then I started watching some of his stuff, and I realized that he didn't come from our lineage. He came from somewhere else. And I know he was trained by a Wing Chun practitioner, and he also learnt from another amazing master he met of something, I don't know what. But what I learnt from Michel was that there are lots of people out there who know the secrets of these art that are not in our lineage. Surprise, surprise. I'd suspected that, but I hadn't really run into it. But it's actually cool that there is other people from a completely different lineage who understand effortless force and the principles of Wing Chun. So I really want to encourage you to read this book. There's nothing in it for me. He's not giving me any kickback for promoting him. And I hope I don't misrepresent him, but I really am glad I bought this little book. And I've meant to make a video about it since Christmas time. It's taken me a while, but I just want to read to you a chapter. He goes through the form, the Sil Nim Dao form in detail, and it's very, very interesting, and there's a lot. I've learnt quite a bit in there about things I hadn't really thought about. But it's the mind that I'm always interested in, the Wing Chun mind force. So I want to read you this little chapter called The Action of the Mind, because it's very, very profound. He says, the most difficult aspect that a practitioner can encounter in an internal martial art is to cultivate the right mental attitude or intention. This term is mostly confused with the concept of the effort of will or even surpassing oneself. So as people see this intention as just what most people out there would understand it as, I intend, I'm strongly willing, I'm determined, gambate, as the Japanese would say, keep going, encouraging, which is all good, but it's not really what we're talking about when we talk about intent or intention. Now, listen to this. This is amazing. This type of misinterpretation is very common and is the number one cause of failure in internal development and withdrawal towards a more external version of the art. Now, that's something that fills me with sadness because it's so true, even in our lineage, that without the right teacher or without enough patience or without the right ideas being given to you and made, like a good teacher has to come from all different angles to get the idea across. And we often have to deal with, as a student, we deal with a lot of conflicting ideas that different teachers say, and you must know what I'm talking about. There's many takes on the same thing. Now, my take on it is typical David Lovegrove take. That guy over there, that guy, they're probably talking a similar thing, but they might use different words for it. Or they might have their thing about a particular part of it that they think is key. So as a student, you have to deal with that. But the encouraging thing is you will get there if you don't give up, but work it out for yourself. You've got to find your own Wing Chun. It's always your own creative product. It's not that guy's, you're not him or her, you're you. So what Michel says here is that people withdraw to a more external version of the art. And that, sadly, is exactly what happened. Bruce Lee was so super famous in the 70s that anybody who was associated with him, even if they used to deliver his mail, could possibly spin it into a pretty good earner once they went to the West, where people didn't know about Kung Fu, they didn't speak Chinese, they didn't know the background of it all. You just had to look Chinese and say, I knew Bruce, and he taught me a few things when I was delivering the mail. He gave me some pretty intense guidelines over a period of a couple of years. People would be going, oh, please, Master, teach us. Teach us, great postman. So a lot of Wing Chun got taught to the West that was just external, because if people haven't had enough time to learn the internal to find out what it's about, they just have to turn once again to punching and kicking. It just becomes thump, kick, bash, headbutt, whatever. Anyone can do that. Kids in the schools do it. Thugs on the street. Any numbskull can punch and kick. It doesn't mean it's necessarily going to really hurt people or knock them down. But anyone can do that. Kung Fu is the internal art. There's the external art of Kung Fu where they do this outrageous stuff and hang weights off their balls and, headbutt nails into things. And I just think, well, you're amazing, man. I don't know how you're doing that. All that stuff's really sort of internal and external. But, there's that thing of having big callous knuckles, which I used to have in the 70s. These were all sort of dark brown. I'd always do knuckle push-ups on concrete and punch walls and punch trees. Just toughening myself up, because that's the only thing I and my teachers knew. You know, a martial artist is a gnarly dude. And this idea that Wing Chun is about like these two women, this old woman and a young woman, took me by surprise. Like, really? That can't be right. Women develop this art. It's a woman's art. How can a woman fight like me? It just seems impossible. When I met Susanna Ho, I call her my second Sifu. Sifu Jim was my official Sifu, but I became friendly with him, but he never really taught me. I just learnt from different of his students, sometimes quite junior people. Whereas Susanna Ho, she's the real deal. Susanna Ho is very high level Wing Chun. So I was very lucky to learn with her, but I learned, wow, women, like, this art is not dependent on brute force at all. And I saw her do things and it just made me completely converted. I was like, yep, I'm letting go of all my gigantic natural strength and I'm going to find this because this is way more powerful. So it's a long-winded way of saying, yes, I agree totally. People, they just give up because it's taken too long, it's too difficult, and they just go back to an external art. But unfortunately, when they do that, they often then teach it to others. So Wing Chun once again gets diluted by somebody who really shouldn't be teaching that, because if they can't gain this, they should go and do, you know, whatever, Krav Maga or Krav Maga or, you know, any of the other arts, BJJ, blah, 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 you know, just go and be a gnarly dude and build up your muscles and your toughness and whatever. But if you want to learn Wing Chun, you've got to do it the real way. So to move on, he says, the true action of the mind or intention is to remove oneself from the path and let the practice act. Now that is really profound. The true action of the mind or intention is to remove oneself from the path and let the practice act. So I won't comment on that right now. I'll just keep going because he explains it well. Mental tension is as harmful as physical tension for an internal practitioner who wishes to advance in his art. The mind is a powerful tool when it is let free to do its deeds. The mere fact of wanting too much is maybe the greatest obstacle. And that is so profound too. That's exactly why a lot of people give up, because they want to be good so much. And the weirdest thing is that you've got to stop wanting to be good. You've actually got to let go of your ego. And the ego is not just, yeah, I'm the man, I'm the best. It's also, oh, I'm no good, you know, not believing in yourself. And it's also, this is the hardest one, wanting it so much, you know, getting desperate. Because the real power is a different thing from the mind. It's different from the conscious mind, the ego mind, the one that wants all this. I won't say it's the enemy, but it's the big brake that's on. It's the handbrake. You've got to let it go. You have got to get out of the way and let the subconscious come out. So I'll let Michel speak again. The only solution is to convince oneself to let go and to trust in the system and its training method. Not just a Sil Nim Dao form, the whole of Wing Chun. If you can learn the forms properly with a good teacher, they're all Sil Nim Dao. And as he says here, the only solution is to convince oneself to let go and trust in the system and its training method. And that's the truth. Wing Chun, I don't need anything except Wing Chun. It's all there. The training method's in the forms. It's in some other stuff that we pass on traditionally to each other, but it's all there. It's a complete system. It is necessary to cultivate a mental state that favours the action of the layer of the mind that activates the internal effect. It is necessary to cultivate a mental state that favours the action of the layer of the mind that activates the internal effect. This is where you need to find the mind, lap nim, as Grandmaster Yip Man said to Chu Shong Tin on a number of occasions where he said, you know, what's the secret? What's the secret? The old man said, Lop Nim. Lop Nim. He said it 3 times and then it was like, no, talk to the hand, don't ask me again. Work it out. It means to find the Nim mind, the Nim Dao. Find that other mind. Exactly what Michel's saying here. You need to cultivate that state that activates the internal effect. This mental state also takes care of the physical because the two are intimately linked. Internal skills are always built from the inside out, never the other way around. The internal effect, which is a form of effortless power, is activated in a totally subconscious manner. A form of effortless power, that's Nimlik. That's the power that comes from the Nim Dao mind, from the subconscious. The internal effect, which is a form of effortless power, is activated in a totally subconscious manner. If you never listen to anything I've ever said, listen to that. And it's Michel saying it. The internal effect, which is a form of effortless power, and I'm talking power that's beyond belief. When you experience it, unstoppable power, is activated in a totally subconscious manner. The practice only aims to bring this layer of the mind or spirit a little closer to the surface and thus to ally itself directly with our sense of perception of external reality and danger. I like the fact that he puts that in. And there's a story about Sigong saying that he was asked, how do we use Nimlik in a fight? And he said, well, Nimlik, the mind force, and that Nim Dao, it takes over and it knows how to fight and it senses what's going on and it does what has to be done in a subconscious manner. It means you don't have to plan it out. You don't have to think, what do I do next? What do I do next? What he was saying is that when you can achieve this state and stay in that state, it does the fighting for you. Now, that might seem really esoteric, but my good friend Nima King picked up on something that I, the great wise man, said once, having been a surfie. I said that as a surfer, if you're riding a snowboard, right, the slope's always the slope. It's just there. When you ride a wave that's like a big slope, it's like a living thing and it's quite unpredictable and it can do weird stuff, unexpected stuff, depending on the shape of the sandbanks underneath, whether there's rocks, whether there's how much water's coming out, whether there's a bit of a cross wave coming from a different swell up the north or whatever. So as a surfer, you never can really know what you're going to do. You take off and it's like an act of faith and then you just respond to what goes on. But it has to be instinctive. You really can't think it through. You might think a little bit, but mostly it's pure instinct. And Nima heard me tell that story and told it in one of his seminars, which I was pretty stoked about because I don't think he's ever actually surfed. But anything like surfing, a practitioner knows, even like basketball, football, there's those times when it's just all happening, especially when you're really under pressure. People are trying to knock the ball out of your hand or knock you down. And you do stuff and it's so beautiful and the crowd erupts. But you sort of know that wasn't exactly you. It seemed like somebody else did it. Somebody like totally in control did it. And that's what he's saying here about martial arts and dealing with danger. The intention, which seems to act independently of us, is therefore in reality us at a more subtle level of being. That's what I've written up on the wall. We are the wild. Soothe the wild beast. Become a human whisperer. Whisper yourself. It's sort of one of the things that's helped me is understanding that I'm two things. I'm that conscious mind and the subconscious, unconscious mind, which is like a wild animal. And you can't train the two the same way. You can train your conscious mind like a domesticated creature by giving it sugar cubes and giving it a whack or whatever people do to train stuff. Whereas the wild animal, you can't train them like that. You got to wait for them to come. So you just got to get into the state. You got to relax and be gentle like them and just be instinctive. The intention, which seems to act independently of us, is therefore in reality us at a more subtle level of being. We could compare this action of the deep and silent mind to the autonomous work of the organs, the blood circulation, etc. There you go. The plovers are agreeing with me. Intention is in reality the source of everything that works and does not work in us. How cool is that? Intention is in reality the source of everything that works and does not work in us. And then he goes on to talk about meditation in Silnim Dao, how to meditate. Some very profound stuff about Chi Sao and how it can go very wrong and very right. The eternal effects, how to use this in self-defense. And as I said up the front, a very fascinating rundown of the form, the first form. So yeah, I love this book. Once again, I encourage you to buy this book. I'll put the links below. It's just a little book, but it's one of those gems. It's full of profundity. It's well written. It's got pictures, photographs throughout, showing demonstrations. But it's one of those books that I can read over and over. It's the sort of book I like to sit here with a cup of tea after training and I'll just browse through it. And I'm getting more and more into it. Anyway, I'll leave it at that. I hope you enjoyed listening to my reading and my other stories, and I'm really looking forward to seeing you next time. Put your comments below. I love to hear from you guys. I really appreciate you following me, especially my friends have been following me for many years. See you soon.